How's everyone doing? How's your break? Welcome back. We are super excited for this next session of How I Pendo. I've got two pretty entertaining guys, so I hope you're ready to really enjoy this session. One of them is a little bit famous at Pendo. He actually spoke at our internal CKO, our company kickoff that we host this past year. We're going to dive into from built to last to built to change, how United Airlines use data and in-app guidance to drive the modern workforce forward. How many of you guys have flown United? Ever? They rose all, I swear, everyone rose their hand, guys, I promise. Go along with it, it's cool. Okay, so our two speakers that are gonna come out here and chat with you guys are Andrew Harrison, is the Senior Manager of Operations, Product, and Strategy at United Airlines. His team is responsible for driving the innovative technological solutions for internal operational teams. That was a mouthful. Empowering them to make the best decisions for the airline and, of course, their customers. And then Gunnar Melsner, who I just said his name wrong for the 100th time, even though we practiced it backstage 1,000,007 times, is the Manager of Operations, Product, and Delivery at United Airlines. His team is responsible for the overall strategy and implementation of United's new tools, technologies, and processes, focusing on being the voice of the customer so that business requirements are adopted and sustained indefinitely. Let's welcome them out.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. There. Now I'm hearing the echo. I don't know how to say Gunnar's last name either. I've known him for years now, so he'll introduce himself here in a minute. But we're with United. Thanks for, I didn't see the hands raised. Hopefully everybody's hands really was raised there, and you've flown United before. But we're going to run you through our tech stack and kind of how we're using Pendo to drive change at United today. Hopefully what you take away from this, we're pretty new. We've had Pendo a little over a year now. So we're pretty new at this. So hopefully what you can take away from this a little bit is how can you get started with Pendo and get some impact quickly. That's kind of what we're hoping to get out of this. But let's introduce ourselves real quick. We'll get a little background on us. Again, my name's Andrew Harrison. I've been with United for 13 years now, longer than Pendo's been around, I found out earlier today. So it's been a long time, long journey at United. But I started at the airport at DC, Washington Dulles International Airport, and worked in customer service space at the airport for a while. And then moved over to Chicago, where I've been since then. And I moved around in loyalty space, data analytics, and now in this product and strategy space. Gunnar, let's hear how you really say your last name.
Yes, so can everybody hear me on this? Yeah. Awesome. So yes, my name's Gunnar Melsna. I'm the Manager of Ops Product Delivery, so working with Andrew's team to actually deliver those solutions to our end product end users. I've been with United, like I said, 5 years. Started off in the customer service world as well. So I lived that experience of being that end user and having to go through the constant change of tools and technology and what really impacts kind of that last person that we're trying to get these new things to. With that, then wanted to transition into the kind of product world to be able to bring that to our teams out at the airports and globally. So that's kind of my background, and we're excited to kind of walk you through how we've implemented Pendo to really kind of step our game up in the into the world of giving that solutions to our people.
So before we jump in, I'm curious, how many do we have kind of in the product space in the room? Raise a hand in here. Okay, a lot. Okay. What about in analytics? Not so many. A few. Okay. Any developers in the room? Okay. So mostly products is what we're seeing. Okay, so let's jump into this. So we're going to start with this video. Okay, great sound, good. So this is a video that was put out a few years ago by our great marketing department, and it's talking about the growth that we're experiencing at United. Somewhere in here it's going to say something about 270 aircraft, new aircraft orders. That's actually grown. I think this was 3 years ago. Since then, our aircraft order went up to over 700 aircraft. So that is just growing like crazy, and we're modernizing our planes, better customer experience on board. So this is one, it's kind of just a cool plug to get you guys excited about flying United, but it's also trying to showcase we're growing a lot at United. But part of our growth plan is obviously we're going to need more pilots and more agents at the airport and more flight attendants to run the operations. But as we go beyond this, we'll explain a little bit about the teams that we support and the teams that are running the airline. And the goal here is we're trying to do a lot more with the same amount of employees. So how do we make that possible? How can we do the same with not necessarily less, but with do more, rather, with the same. We'll let this video finish out here. I think it's almost over. Yep, here we go. So let's give a little bit of insight into our team and who we support. I'm going to skip. That was just a United logo at the end, so we'll skip here. So our team supports 3 main areas: network operations, airport operations, and then our corporate support center. What network operations means at United Airlines means it's kind of like the bridge of a ship. This is where the airline is run. It's the brains, it's the decision-making, the strategy of how do we run the day-to-day operations of an airline. Think of it, this is kind of, there's 24 different teams in this department, or in this area in the network operations, and that's anything from our crew scheduling to our maintenance teams to our just operations managers, we call them. Those decisions about what flights to cancel, where do we need to do maintenance, how do we route the aircraft, the crews, so where do we move the crews around to support the airline? That's what lives in the network operations center. Then we have airport operations. This is the on-the-ground space, and this is everything that's on the ground. How do we turn an aircraft? So the plane comes in, everything that needs to happen, there's like 200 data points, over 200 data points, tracking all of that movement when that plane gets in to what needs to go out. And it's a lot. It's kind of chaotic, but our team supports, and we support employee operations, employee applications. So it's internal applications, not external applications. And then the third one is the support center. This is our kind of management team. This is our leadership team. So those are the 3 different areas that we support. And again, it's internal applications, just making it clear. When we talk about customers or users in this presentation, that's who we're talking about, is internal employees here.
Yeah, and like Andrew said, we are trying to move forward at the rate of technology, which we all know is every day something new is coming out. But we're trying to keep the workforce behind it at not the minimums, but at a manageable level. So there's a small team. It's Andrew's team. It's my team that are supporting these 100,000 people in the technology that we're building. So we have to come up with ways to be able to deliver that at that scale with the resources that we currently have, and using innovative tools to help us do so.
So let's talk a little bit about where we were. So this is a great scene from Meet the Parents. Hopefully you remember this movie. If not, I'm aging myself a little bit here. But in this scene, there's no sound, but she's furiously clicking away. You can hear the click, 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 click of her keyboard, and she's just furiously typing away, just trying to look up availability for a flight. And the comedy here, and I've experienced something like this. You've probably experienced something like this. You're like, what is she doing back there? Why is she typing so much to do such a simple transaction? And we'll give you a little peek behind the curtain today of why it might be this case, and maybe even show you the tool that she's probably using here. We'll show you a little sneak at that, a little peek at that here. But that's where we were, and this is kind of where we are today. In the network operations, remember, that's one area of those kind of 3 buckets that we support. There's over 85 applications of web tools that we use. And the reason why there's so many, we've kind of heard it on the main stage earlier, people just started to develop, and they got kind of excited about developing new tools. And part of the reason this happened was because we had siloed departments. Like I said earlier, there's 24 different teams within our network operations center. And each one of those teams have a development team that support them. And they're building their own suite of tools. And so what that turned into is Team A would build a tool with 20 data points, and then Team B would build one with another 20 data points, and there were maybe 2 that were different. The rest of them were the same. And so they would come in here, and Team A would see Teams B, and they'd, I want those 2 data points. Instead of adding it into that one tool and consolidating them, they would just add it to their tech stack. And so it turned into what you see on the screen here. This is a real picture. Like last week in our network operations center, there's 6 screens, and then you can see more screens behind it. There's just so much information and so many applications that people want more screens. That was the solution. I need more screens to see all of this information. And that's not the solution. And so we're slapping hands saying, no, you don't need more screens. We need to give you better tools. And so that's where we're coming in here to say, hey, we're going to modernize our tech stack. We're going to consolidate and subtract. We don't need these 2 different tools. Let's bring them into one. And that's kind of where our team sits, is in this space where it's cross-departmental, cross-team development of internal applications. And automation is another big piece of this. So let's look at some of these old tools. So this one over here, this is a tool, Unimatic. This is one of our legacy tools. It's still in use today at United. We're in the process of trying to sunset it. And you can see it's a command-based program. And so if anybody in here knows Fortran, I kind of doubt anybody does. That's what it's coded in. We're trying to get out of it. And the people who code it have been trying to retire for years. And so we've just been holding on to them, just because it still runs a lot of our airline. So they're finally saying, no, we're done. So next year, we're out of it. They want to retire, and they've been trying to retire. But the reason why we're showing this is kind of where we were, kind of are a little bit. This is probably the program that lady in the Meet the Parents team was typing away at. Again, it's a command-based system. So each piece of information you want to pull, you have to type in a specific command. And you have to know that command, or else you'll have no idea how to use this tool. And then you have to put in information to see more information. You have to put in the details of the flight or whatever you're looking at, the aircraft number, to get that information. This one, it's a little bit blurry over here, but this one is one of our more modern tools. It's a flight card within a tool that we call Volare. And this is, it's a real-time tool. Our service level agreements with their development teams is 3 seconds of an event happening, it's got to be showing up in there anywhere in the world. So if in Tokyo they scan a bag, or they scan a customer, or they upload a fuel receipt, that should be showing up in here and alerting users and updating within 3 seconds of that happening. Now, all of these commands, these 4 commands on over here, and more are in this modern tool. So the question that you're probably asking is, why would anyone still want to be using this old legacy system? And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. How do we get over that change? But this just seems like a no-brainer. Why aren't we in there? So let's talk about our challenges here for a minute.
Yeah, and like Todd said earlier today, change is hard. Whether that's on your personal life, professional life, or really anything that changes, it can be hard, and everybody goes through it in a different pace. But something that we had to really take kind of a step back, especially going through this kind of transformational era with all of our technology, is that we really had to understand what our gaps were. If you just get a solution that you think is going to, I think Brian said earlier, just here it is and it's all going to work out for you. That's not necessarily the case. You have to understand what you're trying to solve for. So you guys can see on the screen that there's some gaps, and these are the ones that are more relevant to us right now that we have to address before we can really proceed with anything. It's that long wait time for having to train and develop that kind of training, and all the cost and time that goes into association with that. It's also the challenges with new feature adoption. I don't know how many of you guys use the Agile function to release your updates and whatnot, but in the Agile way, every couple of weeks to month, we're putting more and more enhancements and features into this tool, and trying to keep up with that is a daunting task. So we needed a way to be able to do that effectively and get that adoption from the new features. Obviously, digital technology and the resource constraints and just having the resources to be able to take on all of this is something that has to be taken into consideration. And then historically, our insights have been a very kind of cumbersome task where we're having to go to other teams to get the information. We have to trust that information and make sure it's all relevant and up to date. So we really needed to have that insight into the actual data that we were collecting. So with that, here are our goals based off of what we've kind of uncovered. Improving our employee onboarding. Whether that's a new employee into a new position or an existing employee that has to deal with this change and the new technology that they've maybe been using the same thing for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, but we have to also onboard them into this new platform. You guys can see on the left here, these are both the same tool. So Volare Overview Training and Volare's main page. If you can see, it's a little bit blurry, but underneath, this is our training curriculum that our employees can access. It says 3 hours. So to take an overview training, it's going to take an employee 3 hours of their time to go through it. There's not as much searchability in that to be able to find specific information. You kind of have to know where you're looking for and know where it's at in the training, so that you don't really have that kind of flexibility to go in, see it, and then move out. But then on the right, you can see in the top right where the number 2 is in the guide list, that's where we embedded Pendo right into the tool itself. Users can now go into the actual tool that they're using, in this case Volare, and access pretty much everything that's in this overview training. They can search in it, they can filter it, and they can go within 20, 30 seconds. They're actually into the information that they need while they're still performing their job. You don't have to pull them out of their job to take the training. First off, that's a big cost and resource constraint. But they can actually check it out while they're doing their job and then provide us the feedback so we can continue to add to it. So huge benefit that we're seeing on both the new employee and existing employees when it comes to
the other thing to call out about this curriculum is it takes you out of the application. It's a computer-based training outside of the application, whereas within Volare, we're in the application, keeping them in the tool where they're doing the job that they're trying to do there. The next kind of takeaway here was taking a data-driven approach. So this is the way that we started. We came into Pendo with, okay, how do we get started? We had these grand ideas of, okay, we want to go and we want to create segmentation. We came to Pendomonium last year and we heard all these great ideas of, okay, segmentation is great. All these guides, cool ideas. and we came back from it like, okay, how do we get started? And how do we get started at this? And so we started to take a little bit of a test and learn and data-driven approach. So what we mean by this, and this is an example of one feature. So if you think back to the green screens with Unimatic, there's a number of commands in there that we can replace with one feature that we've deployed in Volare called the search bar. So this is just some data tracking that feature from the Pendo data that we have. And we tried couple different methods of get people using that functionality. The first one, we kind of see a little spike here in May. We did some open houses and where we just taught people about the search bar and taught people about the functionality that existed there. And we saw a decent spike there. It was a pretty good spike. But then you can see that dark blue line, I think it is, the thick dark blue line, this one, that spikes up there, it dropped down the next month. And so we didn't see the stickiness that we were trying to have with that open house. So we kind of regrouped. We came back that next month and said, okay, let's try putting out some Unimatic specifics. So we added a section to our resource center that specifically said Unimatic exit. We're getting out of Unimatic. And we started we put guides in there that were specific, command for command. So if I'm trying to do this command in Unimatic, I can click this guide and it will show me exactly how to do it in Volare, in our modern tool. And we saw as we deployed that, and that's where we deployed right here, it's becoming more sticky. So both, it's kind of a multifaceted approach. But we now have the data where we can see what's working. Before we would try something and we didn't know if it was working. We would kind of anecdotally, oh yeah, I'm using that, or we would see a little bit of usage, but not a ton of great data. But now with Pendo, we can look at it and we can test and learn what's working. And so we've taken this test and learn approach to try multifaceted. We've tried open houses. We've tried, we've had just email campaigns. We've tried our guides that are built into the application. We've built in our intranet sites. We have a Flying Together site, which is our United internal website, where we have news articles, and we show them command by command where they can search for the commands and drop them directly into the tool for the guides, how to do that functionality. So a more targeted approach that we're using data to back it and see what's sticking, what's not, and try the next thing, see what works. So the test and learn approach is a big change, the way that we're approaching this here.
And like Andrew said, him and I can go into the tool. We don't have a digital technology or analytics necessarily background per se, but him and I can go in and actually pull that information and actually make actionable decisions based off of it. So you don't have to go through the process of going through somebody that's spending all of their days looking at the analytics. We can do it. Your employees can do it, and your teams can do it very simply and make action on it.
And the other one is, in the past, when we'd ask for that data, we'd have to go to every team, like Gunnar's saying, and sometimes we'd have to wait weeks to get a response. And now we can go in ourselves, quickly figure out, okay, what's working, so that we can go try something new, or continue to do more of that, what's working.
Yep. One kind of thing to wrap up the goals that we're having is increase access to our resourcing. And it's like it plays off of the analytics and data that we're now collecting. Before, we didn't know, right? We'd put something out, and I don't know if anybody else has had this issue, but you put something out and you expect there to be a return immediately, or that it works, and you kind of leave it, and then a couple months later surfaces, a leader brings up, hey, where are we at with this? And you look at it, and it's like, oh no, like it didn't stick. But now, with that information, we can see all of the relevant information and push it to and broadcast it, right? Actually make a good news story out of it. You can see we've done some important messaging that we've been able to do real time in events, and Andrew's going to go through an example here that probably everybody's a little bit aware of. But you can see that we know that 23,000 employees saw a role security announcement that we had to push real time to them. We know that there's 23,000 employees that acknowledge that. So it's secure to all of us, and we know because we don't, emails aren't necessarily the best form of communication. We know that 23,000 of our employees saw that. And you guys can see probably in other presentations that we have funnels created. So we can go in and now see if we put new features and processes in place, we can see the amount of employees that are going through that and make the adjustments where we see. To us, it might seem simple, or to you guys, it might seem simple, but to the employee base, it might not be that simple. And this will really showcase with these funnels where employees are getting stuck, where they're spending more of their time, and where we need to now re-engage and fix that process for them. And then you guys can see the resource center that we talked about in our in-app messaging and announcements. So anytime there's relevant information, we can put it right in the app. With using Pendo, we can put it via our newsletters and all that. So it's all linked and connected with Pendo, that everything flows together now. So everybody's getting that message real time, and it's the same message.
So Todd mentioned this in the the keynote earlier, the CrowdStrike outage. I'm curious, he kind of did a little poll. How many of you were flying or were impacted? I see a few hands during that. I see a big one up here in the middle. An emphatic hand up there. Okay, a couple of you were impacted. What about in your industry? How many of you were impacted in your tech stack by the CrowdStrike outage? Okay, I'm seeing more hands. Yeah. Okay, so this one that kind of hits home. So we were hit pretty big in the airlines. If you saw the news, there were quite a few news articles about it. We had at United alone, we were one of the most impacted airlines, and at United alone, we had over 26,000 computers that we had, or endpoints that we had to reboot across the world, 365 different locations that we had to manage. I think day one, we canceled over 700 flights, and other airlines, some other airlines, we won't name them right now, but some other airlines, they struggled a little bit more than us to recover. And one of the ways that we actually used Pendo to help us recover and to get our users back into the system. So we use it as an opportunity to quickly communicate to our users what they needed to do. And we were, early the next week, we were pretty much recovered. And some of our competitors were still struggling to recover out of that. So we're going to show you a little bit how we leverage Pendo in the moment to get something out to our customers, and showcase a little bit of how done sometimes is better than perfect. So we realized when we were rebooting and getting back up and running, Volare, our modern systems, Volare, one of those being our modern sisters, was up and running quicker than some of our legacy systems. And so we had to push people into this application. But because there was such a surge of users and such a surge of activity, we needed to divert the traffic, the load, to different instances so that it could manage the load. And so we just said, okay, we need to quickly communicate this. How do we get users into those different instances of this tool, those different basically versions? And so we just put up a quick tech alert. And we overtook the page, so when they logged in, we said, if you're in these stations, you go to this version. If you're in these stations, go to this version. And then on top of that, we said, hey, there's some new users coming in. We saw I think it was Volare usage surged 120% that day. And I don't have the stat. I thought I put it on the slide, but I think it was like a 10% increase from the previous Fridays and the post-Fridays after we just saw a big increase in users. So we use this as an opportunity to not only divert the traffic, but we said, hey, we've got new users in here. How can we educate them on how to use the application? So we threw a quick link to the guides and to our resource center at the bottom of that tech alert, saying, hey, are you new to this? Do you need to know how to do some functionality that you might have been doing in these legacy systems in this modern system? Click here to find out. And we saw a big jump in people coming in to look at the guides and to look at the resource center and use those guides to do the functionality that we wanted them to do in the application. So the lesson here that we learned was opportunistic. Take those opportunities when there's a problem. When you can use Pendo to drive that change, to drive the usage where you want people using the functionality that you want them using. So it was one of those experiences that it wasn't perfect. It wasn't the prettiest guide, but we got it out there quickly. Done is often better than perfect there. But now we have this in our mind now. Next time, we can create a template, and we can use that template to have something cleaner, prettier, a little bit. But don't let that stop you was the lesson we learned there. Don't let that stop you.
And a huge advantage with solutions like Pendo is that, in historical situations when things like this happened, whether it's in the airline industry or just internally something's going on, when our system goes down or a function goes down, we can't message in that system. We can't do anything with that system. With Pendo laying over top of our tools, they're not impacted like we were, right? So we were still able to use their systems to inform our users when something's going on, even if they couldn't get into our tool. So it's been a huge advantage to be able to rely on something that's not embedded specifically into our kind of hardwired platform.
So takeaways here. Again, if you're new to Pendo or you're learning or just getting kind of started, some of the takeaways was using that kind of test and learn approach has really worked for us at United. Again, we're still pretty new, but what's been working and where we're seeing some of that growth is try something and you have the data to back it up now. We didn't have that before. And so using that data kind of led analytics first approach to saying, hey, okay, what's working, and try to test and learn different things. That's a big thing, a big takeaway for us. Another one here, if you're a Kevin Costner fan, if you build it, they will come. We kind of had that thought process of, hey, we just need to throw it in there and it will start working. People will go find it. They'll find it naturally. We'll pop it and they'll understand how to use it. But what we realized is it's more of a build it and then tell him about it and then show him and then tell him about it again. And having to kind of reiterate it a little bit. And then they'll come and stay. That's the key, is they were coming a little bit, but then they'll stay if you keep reiterating it. So it's been a little bit of a learning approach, but the data to back it has been a huge piece there. And then like at the bottom one there, done is better than perfect. We realized, like I said earlier, we had these visions of, hey, we want to go create segmented, and we still do, but create segmented groups and targeted training for onboarding for the 24 different work groups in our Network Operations Center. But we realized, let's just get started. What are the basics? What's the basic onboarding we need to create? Let's put that in there and get started with that. What are the FAQs that we get a lot? What are the frequently asked questions that we hear? Let's put some guides in there to get them started so they can answer those in the application and see how to do it in the tool. So those are kind of some big lessons that we learned from there.
Yeah, and just to highlight the empower your employees digitally, everything is moving to the digital front, right? Gone are the days of having kind of in the desk, this is how you do it. It's expanding their resources. And as much as a great thing as Pendo is for folks like Andrew and myself, it's actually what the user wants. They want to be able to go in on their own time and do it themselves and not have to schedule and go and sit in the classroom and go through these curriculums or have to go through a 3-hour training. It's what they want as well. So like Andrew said, continuing to send them the message, continuing to gather that feedback and base what we're doing off of their feedback is what they're wanting, and it's starting to show. And we're able to track that now. Again, back to the data. We're able to actually make actionable efforts for them, and they can see it.
And looking forward, so what are we doing next? So first thing, Pendo at scale. Right now we're only on 2 of our core applications at United. We want to grow that because we just have insight on those 2, but there's so many other applications. We have those 85 tools within our Network Operations Center. A lot of what we're trying to do is, like we said, we need to consolidate and we need to sunset those. But we always get the questions, okay, well, if I turn that off, who's going to be impacted? We don't really know on a number of those. Some of them we can get data, but we have to go to other teams. We have to kind of pull teeth a little bit to get it out of them. But with Pendo, we can deploy on those applications. We can drive them into from the cross-platform integration there. We can drive them from one to the other. So Pendo at scale is a big what's next for us. That's a big takeaway for us, is we want to move to more of our applications to drive the value, especially in the data side of things, that we can have the insights into how they're using it. We always get the question when we go to sunset a tool, well, who's actually using it? And we go to our DT team, our digital technology teams, and ask them, well, who's using this? And they'll give us, there's 2,000 users. Okay, who are those users? And we don't have the rich insights. And so that's where that's where we can get a ton of value at Pendo at scale. The other one that I'll just call out here is the segmentation. This is where we talked about we wanted to do that. We still want to do that. So there's a ton of value in getting our users. You saw Valaria a couple times in there. It's a big, massive application that supports multiple teams. How they use it, how those different teams use it, is very unique. And so Pendo can help drive that onboarding process. We heard in some of the keynote earlier, the segmented kind of communication and driven onboarding process. That to me, that's what we want to do. And that gets us excited. That's what's next for us. And as we get that, what we've been using are these 2 applications, as this is one of our takeaways here, is also we've been able to use the 2 core applications as a kind of a springboard, as a champion of Pendo, to say, hey, this is what we've been able to do with this, to then bring it to other work groups and say, hey, we can do this for your team. We can do specific. We can get buy-in from the leadership to say, hey, we need you to help us understand your process, how your team is using the tool, so we can develop that segmentation and that specific kind of use case-driven engagement within the application.
Yeah, and to really just pull those 2 together is getting that leadership buy-in. I highly, highly encourage you guys, if you have other departments that kind of intertwine with your work, whether it's globally, domestically, in your own office, is get them involved. We're starting to bring in our other departments that are either at the airports themselves, in other support kind of metric areas, is get them involved, because we're creating this ecosystem that all works together, and it can communicate with each other, and we can all make those insights, or take those insights and make actions on it, and it's not trying to fill somebody else in later on in the process. They can go in and see it too. So just getting the leadership to buy in, it makes everything a much more seamless process, and again, allows us to scale, allows us to segment and really dive into the specifics when we have all of this new process technology and tech that's going in.
So we wanted to finish off with can't let Pendo have the only product announcement. And so some of you might have seen this already, but last month at United, we announced a partnership with Starlink. And we are going to be changing our Wi-Fi so that it's free for everybody on board. at United. So that's an exciting announcement at United. And it's going to be fast. So if you watch this video, you can see gaming, like streaming, all that you can do, kind of pretty much anything you want to do on the plane. That's the way I think I understand it. But it's an exciting announcement here. But why are we talking about that right here with Pendo? So one of the beautiful things that we've learned about Pendo is it's allowed us to free up the digital resource constraint that Gunnar called out earlier. We have precious resources that are developing these tools, and so if we're taking them and having them build in-app guides that we can do with Pendo, or the analytics that we need from them, we're freeing up those resources a bit to do exciting things like enhance your customer experience. So that's everything we have today. We'll open it up for questions. I think we have some mics running around.
Yep, mics are running around, so prep your questions. We got one already up here. Another one up here for our next mic runner.
I think we're getting this mic first over here.
Yep.
All right, how are y'all doing?
Good.
We're new in our Pendo journey. We're about 3 months in, and
welcome.
We're taking a similar approach to starting with analytics. When did y'all build in the resource center as part of your implementation?
Yeah. So, finish. Sorry.
Oh, because we feel like we've got to have a kind of a backlog of stuff to put in it so it's valuable.
Yeah,
I do have a second part to my question.
Yeah, we felt the same way. We're like, the resource center seems great, but you gotta have. So we did it pretty early on. We started with a few guides, but we like a basic welcome to this tool kind of application. One of the tools that we have 2 primary tools right now. One's a very established tool. One is a relatively new tool. So with the new tool, a welcome guide made sense. For the established one, it didn't really make sense. And so with that one, we did a resource center led kind of first. We built up some guides, some tutorials, an announcement center, all that sort of stuff before really launching anything. With the newer tool, we were able to start with just some basic guides, but then it quickly evolved into, okay, let's give them a kind of an onboarding section. And so we had kind of a both approach depending on the tool. But the resource center for us has been very kind of critical. So we tried to lead with that as early as possible.
I will add to that. We learned lessons, right? We did things that because we have this functionality, let's use it. There is strategy that needs to go behind it, but the great thing with Pendo is that you can go in a moment's time, 5-10 minutes, and change it and add things to it and revise it if you need to, recategorize it. So it's allowed us the flexibility to test it and put it out there, like we said, the test and learn approach, but then also pull it back right away and actually put this is what actually needed to happen. So it's been a really good resource for us to use even.
Yeah.
The second
part, yeah.
sorry, is can I get an upgrade on Thursday for my flight home?
Can I get an
like that
upgrade on
upgrade
Thursday?
If only. We were going to have an Oprah moment. Okay, we have a question down here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your insights. I guess my question is more tactical. Like, before you get Pendo, you need to make your business case. You need to show that what you'll get out of it is more than you're going to pay. And imagining that United is quite a frugal organization, how did you bring that case, and how did it go?
So we actually we worked with Pendo. Pendo is a great team to help put that story together for us and help drive that kind of story. So we worked with our sales team and the onboarding team to kind of build that use case. But the value we had been talking about, we started with in-app guides. That's where we first started looking at Pendo. And we recognized that our deployment strategy that Gunnar outlined a little bit it just wasn't landing. Like we would deploy something, and 3 months later they'd say, hey, I need this feature. And we're like, well, it's been there for 3 months. And so we recognized internally that it was a struggle. So we needed to change and have it be more in the moment, in the application, better just announcements, feature deployments, all that sort of stuff. And so we were looking for something. So the value was pretty clear when we saw Pendo, but to kind of put it on paper, Pendo helped us with that. So I would lean on the team, on the Pendo team. They can help with that a lot. That's what we did, at least.
Don't go far. We'll get your info and we'll get you some help.
I think
Next question.
One back there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Hey, so mine is based on, we also have like a legacy green screen application
Okay.
that we use. So what kind of resistance have you encountered moving that over to your new system, and how has Pendo helped you kind of smooth that transition over?
You
Yeah,
wanna take that one?
so I said I'm product delivery, but I also, that incorporates change management, training, communications, kind of all the above, right? So that's kind of been my life for the last year while we go through this transition. There's a lot of resistance, right? With anything, when we change something up in our lives, there's going to be those people that are like, this is what I know. We showcase the resource center, right? We're able to put those guides in there now in the moment, whereas our training and development isn't going to probably have a curriculum-based training, because we'll still do curriculum-based trainings for documentation and regulation purposes, but we're able to get that out in front now. If our plan is to sunset this tool a year, 2 years from now, we're able to do and collect feedback and get data behind how they're using the tool today, so that we can make those kind of changes and iterations throughout the next 2 years when we get to that end date. So we see it, we're communicating it, we're hosting open houses, so we're able to start that process today versus 2 years from now when it's like, all right, it's go time. Handle it and react to it. We're being proactive now with all of our messaging and how we go about it and collecting the feedback so that we're doing things based off what the users actually need, not just what we think they need.
I'll add one thing to it also, is a lot of the legacy systems like the green screen, they're efficient at it. Our average age, I think, in the network operations center is something like 25 to 30 years. And so they've been doing that, and that system is like 55 years old, so they were trained on it, and they know how to use it, so they know the commands, and they're quick. So it's muscle memory. And so the beauty of having something in the app like Pendo that can walk them through in the application and help build that muscle memory in the new tool, it's a game changer. And it helps drive that muscle memory, as opposed to, I do a PowerPoint essentially training or a classroom training, and then I have to come back and remember how to do it. It's a totally different experience. So having it in-app helps drive that muscle memory in the tool.
Selfish plug, there's a great use case for P for E, Pendo for employees. Check out the Product Village. Questions? More questions. They've got about 7 or so minutes, so we can answer some more questions for you. Got one over here.
2 over here.
2 over here. Just kidding. They're coming. Don't worry, guys.
Hi. Just curious for if it was a targeted approach to roll out data-driven decision for Volare based on the pain points, or was it like, let's do the learning or roll it out internally and then implement it for customers?
Really both. It was, like I said, when we got Pendo, Volare had already been implemented for some 3 or 4 years already, right? So it was already out there. What we needed to do was gain the insights into Volare of how users are using it, because there's other applications out there that users could do the same functionality in that we didn't want them to do it in anymore. So it was understanding how they're currently using it, the way we think they're going to use it, but what their actual reality of them using it is. And then being able to adjust and push that messaging and push those guides and create those kind of deliverables to them, so that now we understand what they're doing and what they need. So it was both kind of a pain point that we got involved, but also more on the strategy of how do we make this long-term, because we know that the tools that they're using outside of Volare are eventually going to go away. So we want to limit that resistance when that time comes and kind of get them up to speed now.
Cool. Great question. Another question over here? Whatever.
So I work at a railroad, CSX, and I see it's like looking into a mirror when I see you guys up here, because we did the same exact thing. So we're targeting our employees first, and it's our trained engineers, and we're going out there, and it doesn't fit the Pendo mold at most of their use cases, because it's very much marketing and customer oriented for a lot of it. But right now I'm ideating and trying to figure out, okay, well, we've got employees. Are you guys considering pivoting at all to customer focus, or are you going to try to keep it employee based?
So our sphere of influence right now is employee based.
Yeah.
So we're focused on the employee aspect.
Never say never.
Probably
Never say
employee.
never. Yeah.
That's our
Never
sphere of
say never.
influence. Probably the employee for now. But I know I have seen our United app, for instance. They put up some guides. I think they're building those themselves. And so again, it's the tech resource. So we could plug them and connect with them on I'll plug our United app, by the way. I think it's the best airline app out there, so download it if you don't have it. But it's great. And there's a lot of insight in there, but do people know about all of it? And that's where I think Pendo can help kind of give some of that insight. They do a little bit of it, but I think we could do more.
And that's why scale was one of our goals, right? We want to broaden this to whether it's internal or external. We want to make sure that the company as a whole understands this and we use it where it's applicable.
And then, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. With your targeting your user groups, your employee groups, did you guys have any hurdles when it came to accessing certain employee groups that may be union-based or anything like that when it came to metadata? Because there's a lot of similarities between railroad and air, and it's airlines, and I feel like we're going to have the same answer.
So we actually had to strip a lot of metadata out of ours and mask it. So because of just concerns and things like that. So we would like to clean that up and make it better. Get more insight into segmentation. That was one of the things that we have basic segmentation capabilities, but we'd love to put more in there. And so we just need to kind of work with our security teams and then the risk, just kind of get them over that hurdle, get more trust in Pendo and their side of things. But I think it's building there, and people are realizing the value of it. But it's the metadata is a big one that when we started to look at that, the opportunities I think are huge.
I love this Q&A. Selfish plugs, a clear expansion opportunity with United into the United app. I love all the Pendo for Employees use cases. Just to correct a quick thing, there's plenty of use cases for Pendo internally to your employees, not just to your external customers. We have a question in the back. We're going to send our mic runner backwards. Just kidding. They already have it.
Awesome. Thank you. So if I think about value that's been created from using Pendo, and if you think about like 3 buckets: saving money, making money, saving time, or reducing risk, have you been able to quantify any of the results that you've had by using Pendo? And then if so, is that building into a business case to launch Pendo for your other applications in the future?
Yeah, so we've been plugging into that a little bit. The biggest ones for us so far have been, one, efficiencies, and being able to actually sunset old applications. Pendo has given us the ability to transition users out of these old legacy and into the new, and we have reducing that kind of tech stack or tech debt that we have on those ones. So that's where we've been focusing a lot of our initial kind of work is let's get them into the tools we want them in. This is the modern tool. Let's get out of the old one. Let's stop paying those guys who can still code in Fortran and sunset those applications and start moving into the new and modern. And it's just efficiencies is a lot of where we're focusing kind of the ROI. I think people are recognizing the value of that and the scalability. So it hasn't been that hard of a sell as they see the information, see the data that we're getting out of the tools, see the transition and the onboarding capabilities in that space. So we haven't gone the next step for that scalability. That's kind of part of our next steps is the scalability. But that's what we're going to be using. And as we start sharing those stories, people are understanding it pretty easily.
Okay, we have time for one more question. All right, I think you nailed it, guys. Give them a big round of applause. What a great presentation.
Thank you.